What's happening? Thanks for joining me on this Monday afternoon. Always appreciate the company. And boy, we have a lot to talk about. I remind you, podcasts Monday, Wednesday, and Friday will continue to be at 4 p.m. Eastern up until Tuesday, August 13th, which is the day of the Patriots joint practice against Philadelphia. Like, comment, subscribe, rate, and review if you like the content. If you love the content, you can like, comment, and subscribe as well. My people over at Spotify, Apple Pods, rate and review is vitally important. Like I said, we've got so much to cover today. I was out at practice, first padded practice of training camp season. I saw everything that was out there on the field. Also stuff that happened on the field, which was really off the field. We'll get to that as well. But let's start with Christian Barmore. It is the biggest news for the Patriots over the past several days. Christian Barmore last night, we found out that the Patriots discovered blood clots, and he is going to be out indefinitely. Barmore's agent, Nicole Lynn, she posted this on Twitter last night. I would be remiss if I did not thank the Patriots trainer, Jim Whalen, for his absolute diligence and care over the last couple of days. Today could have looked a lot different without Jim's persistence and expertise. Obviously, it should go without saying, first and foremost, we think about Christian Barmore, the human being, and hopefully he is healthy. Hopefully he gets healthy. He's 25 years old. He turned 25 yesterday, so not the greatest birthday that he has had. But we can only hope that he is back on the road to recovery and that he will be fine, again, as a human. Not talking about football player, as Christian Barmore, the human being. Hopefully he is healthy, gets back to that point, and we can feel good about his health away from the football field. With that said, this is a football podcast, so we have to look at the impact of Barmore's absence for this team. Again, it's going to be indefinitely. We have no idea how long he is going to be out, and I think Barmore being out, it's a huge deal. It is a significant situation to have Christian Barmore out. He is such a pivotal piece to this defense. He is one of 2 to 3 blue chip players this team has on the roster. And that's if you think Christian Gonzalez has reached blue chip status. I think he's close, and he's going to get closer as long as he's healthy. But you can look at Barmore, you can look at Gonzalez, you can look at Judon as the 3 guys that you could label blue chip within this organization right now. As of right now, again, Drake May hopefully gets there, but as of right now, those are the 3 guys. And we'll get to Judon a little bit later with all the news that happened today between he and Mayo and Groh and Wolf on the practice field. We'll get to him a little bit later. But Gonzalez coming back from an injury. Barmore now out indefinitely with blood clots. The Judon contract situation hovering over this football team. So your 3 blue chip guys all have questions, which is not where you want to be. Barmore is one of those blue chips. So losing him for any period of time is significant, let alone if it's going to be indefinite like it is going to be with him. The interior defensive line, what's the depth like? You've got Aquale, who replaced Barmore today at practice. You've got Godchaux. You've got Armon Watts, who you brought in from the Steelers. Watts did not have the best day today, so we'll keep an eye on that. But your interior defensive line, it's not necessarily deep. You've got guys like Farms and Roberts and Hill. Those are the other guys. But Lawrence Guy's no longer here. Barmore is now out indefinitely. So you're really left with Aquale, Godchaux, and Watts. And Godchaux has his own contract situation playing out. We'll get to that a little bit later on. So the interior defensive line depth is going to take a huge hit with Barmore dealing with some serious health issues as we talk right now on this Monday afternoon. The interior pass rush, I've mentioned this before. Teams are paying guards more money than they've ever paid guards before. And I was wrong about this. I thought Owenu would end up being at the tippity top of the guard market with his contract, which is why I wanted him to be set at tackle. But the more you look at these contracts at offensive guard, they're $20 million a year. I mean, when you talk about top 5 or 6 guards in football, those guys are making $20 million a year. Hunt got a $19-20 million contract per season. Quinn Miners of the Broncos got his 4-year, $80 million deal about a week or two ago. Owenu got his deal. So that market has picked up significantly over the past year to 2 years. And we have to adjust our understanding of how much guards are getting paid. And they're getting paid because of interior defensive linemen, because teams are watching guys like Chris Jones with Kansas City, who single-handedly changes the dynamic of that Kansas City defense. When Jones is not out there, it is a different defense. It is not nearly as good of a defense. Obviously, Aaron Donald with the Rams during their great runs. Another guy, interior defensive line, pass rush, forcing double teams. And Barmore has that ability. I'm not telling you he's Aaron Donald, but he has the ability to draw those doubles. He has the ability to get after the quarterback in the middle of that offensive line. And that drives quarterbacks crazy. So as you look around, we start to understand now offensive guards are getting paid more money because interior defensive linemen are getting more dangerous rushing the passer. And when you don't have Barmore out there, now what do you have? Can Armon Watts give you anything pressuring the quarterback? You've got to rely on somebody like Aquale. Davon Godchaux is not a quarterback hunter. He is a run stuffer. He admitted as much last week when he spoke with the media. We all know what Godchaux is. He's a run-stuffing, big nose tackle in the middle of your defensive line. That's his job. So now you look at the interior pass rush not being anywhere near what it was with Barmore on the field. And that impacts the rest of the defense. Because when you don't have Barmore getting that interior pass rush, that impacts the edge pass rush. Guys like Judon, guys like Keon White, Joshua Uche, and others. Because if you could force that offensive line to overreact to your interior defensive lineman, that takes the pressure, that takes the double teams away from the edges. So with Barmore not out there, it impacts everybody on that defensive line. The guys that have to replace him in the middle, and also the edge guys trying to get to the quarterback. It's a big impact. Linebackers don't have the same kind of gaps they can run through. With Barmore and Godchaux, where you're really stuck. If you're an offensive line, you're dealing with Godchaux and Barmore, and what do, right? That inevitably, if you're doubling Barmore, that's going to open up some of those gaps for the run defense, and you have your linebackers sneaking up. You have your hybrid linebacker / safeties running up to the line of scrimmage, making plays behind that line of scrimmage, making plays in the box because the defensive line is doing its job. So it's a trickle-down effect. It trickles down to the defensive backs. Because if you're not getting that immediate pressure, if you're not making quarterbacks uncomfortable, they have more time to throw the football. And because they feel more comfortable, it's tougher to stop those passing offenses. So it is the slow, deadly trickle-down effect, that impact. No Barmore affecting your interior defensive line depth and your interior defensive pass rush, which impacts the edges, which impacts the linebackers, which impacts the defensive backs. And you just go boom, 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 boom. And it's this domino effect. No bueno. Now, the last Patriots example of blood clots was David Andrews. It doesn't mean what happened with Andrews is what's going to happen with Barmore. But when you have blood clots, I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to try to be a doctor. But when you have blood clots, you get put on blood thinners. And it's usually a weeks-long process. We don't know much about Barmore's situation. We don't know if it was in one spot, multiple blood clots in one spot. We don't know if it was in multiple spots. None of those details have come out. And honestly, if I knew the details, I wouldn't share them with you because I don't think it's fair to Barmore. It's a physical health situation, a very serious situation. If those details come out, we'll cover it. But we don't know all of those details right now. David Andrews back in 2019 had blood clots. He missed the entire year. Now, Andrews got to the clots a little bit late. It's known that he wasn't feeling well for a while. He kept going out there. He kept practicing. And eventually, it got to the point where he had to go be seen. and they had to figure out what was going on. So we don't know. Is this going to be a similar situation as Andrews and Barmore misses the entire year? Is Barmore going to miss a month, a couple months, a few months? Nobody knows. And you also have to look at it this way. You know, if you are the Patriots and you're very unlikely to get to the playoffs this year, you're not really going to rush Barmore back. Now, you're not going to rush him back anyway because it's such a serious situation, but you get what I'm saying. If they feel like he could come back for a few games, is it really worth it? Or do you just reset and say, hey, man, next year, that new contract extension kicks in. You're making big money. We're going to take a step forward in 2025. Just take care of yourself. We're going to make sure that you're healthy, and we'll see you next season. We don't know. All right, I was at practice today, and boy, oh boy, I feel like I've got a million notes jotted down for all of you after going to practice today. I'll get to those thoughts in a minute. Before I do, don't forget, give us that thumbs up. Give us that like. All the thumbs means an awful lot here on the YouTube channel. So more likes means more eyeballs, leads to more subscriptions, which we also need. So like, comment, subscribe. Also Spotify, Apple Pods, rate and review. All right, let's get to my practice notes. We start with Matthew Judon because when we talk about the biggest deal of this practice, something that could affect not only right now, but this season, and also maybe even in the long term, depending on how you feel about Judon and whether or not he should be with this team long term. Judon had a tough day. He had a tough day. He first was with Mayo, and where I was situated, I was up near where 98.5 the Sports Hub is set up. I was hanging out with some of those guys. I was hanging out with some of the Patriots guys a little bit. So they were way, way back, okay? So where Judon was and Mayo was, they were pretty far back to where I was positioned. But you see the video. NBC Sports Boston has a video out, and you can see this back and forth between Judon and Mayo, and it doesn't look friendly, folks. It looks like Mayo is irritated. Looks like Mayo is frustrated, and who knows what they're talking about. One could imagine that, hey, maybe Mayo thought that Judon was going to be practicing today, and all of a sudden he wasn't practicing. Maybe it's, Judon had a little bit of attitude, a little bit of a, pain in the ass feel vibe, and Mayo wasn't digging it. Maybe they wanted Judon to not be seen today. Maybe they wanted him in the locker room. But instead of him being in the locker room and staying away from the public eye, he's out there. Maybe Mayo was upset about that. I don't even think it matters what was at the heart of the issue, but it was obvious. That's what matters. It was obvious that there was an issue. You had this situation where Mayo and Judon are going back and forth for like 10, 15 minutes. Judon doesn't look happy. Mayo doesn't look happy. Judon then walks away from Mayo. He leaves, and then he comes back a few minutes later, and now he's talking with Matt Groh and Elliott Wolf. That conversation goes on for a few minutes. I would tell you that Judon was talking more with Groh than he was with Wolf. Wolf didn't look like he was saying much. It mostly looked like a Judon-Matt Groh conversation happening. And so that conversation's happening, and Judon starts to walk away. And we have, while they're talking, Judon's he's kind of animated. His hands are kind of up, he's throwing them up, and he starts to walk away. And then as he's walking away, and some of you might know exactly what I'm getting at, but as Judon is walking away, he stops, and he turns back around, and he says one last thing to Wolf and Groh, and then he walks off the field. I don't know what the one last thing was, but I will tell you, again, the feel of it and watching it play out certainly seemed like Judon was giving Groh and Wolf one last piece of his mind before he walked off. And where I was standing, I was above the practice field. Judon walked pretty much right by us, right in front of us. And again, he didn't look happy. He looked like he was peeved. And he walked off and we didn't see him again. So obviously, something's going on. Obviously, it doesn't look like it was a great conversation between Judon and Mayo or Judon, Wolf, and Groh. And, I've been saying all this time, throughout this last several months, I've been saying I thought it was more likely that Judon would be here more than Godchaux. After today, because I'll get to Godchaux in a minute, after today, it feels like a 180 happened. It feels like Judon now is less likely, and they might end up both being here. They might end up both not being here. Who knows? I'm just telling you my gut, my feel. I thought that it was more likely that Judon would play ball, that Judon would be here, and Godchaux would not get what he wanted, and he would end up, I don't know, playing the string out, being released, traded, whatever. After today, I feel completely different. I feel like it's more likely that Godchaux is going to get taken care of, and Judon's going to be the one that is not happy with the contract, not willing to go out there and play ball, so to speak. And now you've got this cantankerous relationship. The thing that I hated the most, and I was talking about this with a buddy of mine, the thing that I hated the most was that this was so public. It was so out there for everybody to see. That should not be the case. We should not be seeing this play out. Those conversations between Mayo and Judon, and then Judon and Groh and Wolf, those conversations need to happen behind closed doors. We don't need to see the dirty laundry. We don't need to see the arguments. It's like a couple that argues in the middle of like a restaurant. I don't need to see it. If you got problems, if you got couple problems, go home and deal with the problems at home. Don't be so public about it. And that's what I hated the most about the Judon stuff in the Patriots / Judon thing today. That's what bothered me the most. This is like right out in Front Street. It's practice. Everybody's watching. The entire media is there. And you've got this back and forth, and it's just there's no room for that. Like, take it into the facility. Take it into the locker room. Take it into one of the offices, right? The public display just wasn't needed. And it didn't look good. Let's get to Godchaux now. Very different feel from what I was watching with the Judon stuff and watching Judon walk off the field. Very different kind of feel between Godchaux's team and the Patriots. And I mean Godchaux's team as his representation. Drew Rosenhaus was in the house today. He was at Gillette Stadium. He took in practice. And this all played out right in front of me, which is crazy. Again, very public. But I was up top, and I was looking down towards the field, and I see that Drew Rosenhaus, after practice is over, so where I'm at, you have family and friends tent, and then to the right, you have the media tent, and then right off to the left of the family and friends tent, Drew Rosenhaus is standing there. And Rosenhaus is talking with Matt Groh, which I also find very interesting because Matt Groh is doing most of the talking with Judon. Matt Groh is doing all of the talking with Rosenhaus. Wolf was nowhere to be found. So how pivotal is Matt Groh in these negotiations? That was pretty interesting. So Groh is speaking with Rosenhaus. Groh then walks away. Godchaux then walks up to Rosenhaus, and Godchaux and Rosenhaus are going back and forth for a while. And I mean a while. And then Mayo comes over. So now you have Rosenhaus with Mayo, with Godchaux. All three guys are standing there talking to each other. It seemed like it wasn't a bad conversation. I'll just put it that way. At one point, Mayo looked like he was joking with Godchaux, and Godchaux kind of pushed Mayo, and they were like laughing about it. It seemed like a very cordial conversation. It was not animated. It did not seem like there was anger from either side. You know, watching Judon and Mayo, again, you could tell that there was something going on there that wasn't good. That wasn't the vibe with Godchaux. seemed like they were having a pretty decent conversation. Does it mean something's going to get done? I don't know. Something could be close to getting done. Rosenhaus is here. So maybe a deal gets done. Who knows? But watching the two conversations, Judon with the team and then Godchaux with the team, they felt like two entirely different conversations. So we'll see how it all unfolds. And again, all of this being public, I don't think is ideal. Another item that didn't have to do with the actual practice per se was Jabril Peppers. We talked about Peppers after his extension. I loved the extension. I love Peppers. He's one of my favorite players on this team. I thought he was one of the best players on the team last year. I thought he was arguably the best player on the defense last year. Well, something else that we saw before practice really got going with 11-on-11s and competitive periods, Jabril Peppers, way back towards the athletic trainer shed, so to speak, he's getting looked at by the trainers, and it looks like a lower leg situation. I don't know if it's a foot. I don't know if it's an ankle. I don't know if it's a calf. I have no idea, but he's getting looked at. And Evan Lazar first pointed me towards a direction and was talking about how, he was paying attention to Peppers and what was going on. And then many of us started to keep an eye on what was going on with Peppers and the training staff. He then gets out of the training shed and walks onto the field. They have one drill. He takes one snap, part of a drill, and he doesn't move that much. He doesn't do much, and he walks right off the field, right back to the trainer shed. Not great. Don't know what's wrong, but obviously he tried to push it. He tried to see how he would feel, and immediately, one snap, one drill, knew he wasn't right, unsnapped his helmet, walked off. So you've got Judon having this verbal kerfuffle with Patriots coaches and Patriots management. Then you have Peppers getting hurt and doesn't practice the rest of the day. He's done off the field. If that wasn't enough, after watching Peppers with his head in his hands sitting in the athletic trainer shed, if that wasn't enough, then Joshua Uche gets thrown out of practice. Uche gets into a beef, a back and forth with Chuks Okorafor. Okorafor stayed on the field. Uche got kicked off. So, when you look at this, it's obvious that the coaching staff felt like Uche was at fault. Okorafor stayed out there and practiced the entire day. Uche was kicked off the field. That tells us, at least the coaches thought this was on Uche and not on Okorafor. So now you're looking around and Judon is seemingly pissed. He's not practicing. Peppers is seemingly hurt. He's not practicing. Uche, seemingly irritated, gets into a fight with Okorafor. He gets tossed off the field. And you're like, my freaking goodness. Christian Barmore, blood clots, like we talked about at the start of this podcast. So now you're looking out there on the practice field, and this defense, which was top 10 in DVOA and is supposed to be the obvious strong point of this team, at least for today's practice, you're looking out there, you've got no Barmore, no Judon, no Uche, no Peppers. My goodness. We'll get to Drake May and the quarterbacks in a minute. Don't forget, like, comment, and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. If you're not watching on YouTube, you can head on over to YouTube and give us that thumbs up, which means an awful lot. You can also like us on Facebook. You can like us on Twitter, pretty much anywhere. If you want to help us out, you want to support this program, you want to drive traffic to our podcast, like, comment, subscribe, rate, and review at Spotify and Apple Pods. All right, let's get to the quarterbacks. Drake May, not good. Wasn't good today. I'm not going to come on here just because I like Drake May and I love the pick. I'm not going to sit here and tell you guys something different. That didn't actually happen. May was not very good today. He had a rough day. Now, some of that, to me, was anticipated. It's his first padded practice in the NFL, first day in pads. I'm not telling you that he's going to be awesome. I'm not telling you that this team is going to be as good or nearly as good offensively as the 49ers. If you were watching today on Twitter, Brock Purdy at today's practice threw like 3 interceptions. It was their first padded practice. So, Lamar Jackson has thrown 3 picks or 4 picks the last 3 days. So, these things happen. May did not have a good day. First padded practice in the NFL. Some of that is expected. Some of the things we saw, he slipped and fell at one point when he was in the pocket. I don't know if it was a full slip or if he stepped on somebody's foot, but he was uncomfortable right away after the snap. I don't know why. I don't know if it was a funky snap. There were a number of funky snaps by the backup lineman, by Antonio Mafi, who's a train wreck. So there was some funkiness there, and then he kind of just like fell. I don't know if he stepped on a foot. I thought he stepped on a foot. Other people think that he slipped. Maybe it was both. He was sacked twice, which obviously isn't all on him. There were 2 or 3 drops. Mitchell Wilcox, tight end, 4 or 5, depending on how you feel. He dropped 2 passes from May today. So May, it was a total of 3 of 11. He was 3 for 11 with a pick. I will say this. Number one, I thought they were very conservative with May today. I thought the play calling was very, very conservative. They didn't really ask him to do much. A lot of handing the football off. There were a lot of runs. And then when he had chances to, show what he has, there were some bad snaps. There was some bad offensive line play from the backups. Again, he had receivers dropping footballs. So I wouldn't say it was all on Drake May. It wasn't all on May. It was some of his surroundings. I'd also say this, that May did not get a lot of run. He didn't get a lot of reps with the better talent on this team. He got a lot of reps with Wilcox and Walls and, some of these other guys. And so I don't know if there was a lot of chemistry there either in certain situations on certain snaps. So I think you have to look at this in totality. Again, I'm not going to tell you, and I'm not going to excuse everything from May. He individually wasn't good, and his accuracy was a little scattershot. But I also think the operation around May wasn't great. The backups, the 2s and the 3s that he was working with, they weren't great either. They didn't really do much at all. You've got guys dropping passes. You've got the offensive line being a little bit leaky. You've got your center snapping it all over the joint from time to time. So I would say overall, it was sloppy and it wasn't a great production for Drake May. So he wasn't very good, but the people around him weren't very good. Here's the good news. Jacoby Brissett was pretty damn good today. I'm not going to sit here and tell you he was great, but first padded practice, he was pretty damn good. He looked like a veteran quarterback. He looked like a guy that understood what padded practices are. And Brissett, he made a very good throw to Javon Baker, who made a very good catch, jumping up and hauling it in. If it was a little bit better of a throw, Baker might have had a touchdown, but it was still a pretty good throw given the circumstances around Brissett. So he had a connection with Javon Baker. Baker, again, making one of the better plays of the day. And then, of all people, Tyquan Thornton made a catch kind of over the opposite shoulder. Good throw. Good throw by Brissett. So he hit both Baker and Thornton downfield, big chunk plays. I also thought there was a play against a zone defensive look where Hunter Henry found the soft spot in the zone, and Brissett, he threw a pretty good football in a tight window. The throw was almost coming right at me from my angle, and he threw it low and away from the defensive players. He put it right where it needed to go. Henry made a nice catch right off the turf, and it was a nice throw by Brissett. So you had the tight window throw to Henry. You had the downfield throws to Baker and Thornton. And watching this practice, it's obvious that Jacoby Brissett right now is QB1. It's obvious. May's not there. He might get there in 3 weeks. He might be there in a month. But right now, when you look at it, Brissett is 1, May is 2. And it didn't look close today. Again, though, Brissett was working with the top offensive line. He was working with their best weapons. So that has some to do with it. But Brissett overall, his accuracy was there, and the plays were there to be made. So I thought Brissett looked pretty damn good today. So if you're a Patriots fan, take solace in the fact that at least one of the quarterbacks looked like they were ready and played well. So good day, very good day from Brissett. I have not been there at practice until today. I saw many people saying that this was Brissett's best day of practice. I wouldn't be surprised by that because what I saw, again, he was pretty damn good. So shout out to Jacoby Brissett, who had a good day. Some overall sloppiness on the offense from time to time. Phil Perry tweeted this out. 2 false starts. There were, some bad snaps. 5 sacks were given up. You had 5 drops. But a couple more positives. Brissett was a positive. I would say Javon Baker was a positive. Seeing Tyquan Thornton make a play like he made was a positive. The offensive line. Don't fall off your chair. Don't drive off the road. Don't cut yourself if you're making dinner. The offensive line. We saw some progress from the offensive line today. First of all, the offensive line was the line that we expect now. Outside of David Andrews. Andrews was not at practice today. It was an excused absence. I will tell you, from what I have heard, it is not an injury with Andrews. So you don't have to worry about David Andrews being banged up. His absence did not have to do with an injury today, from what I heard. So there's that. David Andrews was not there. Nick Leverett was there as the center today. So you had Caden Wallace, left tackle, Sidy Sow, left guard, Leverett center, Owenu, right guard, and you had Okorafor at right tackle. So the same as it was on Friday, the same as it was on yesterday, same was today. Wallace, Sow, Owenu, and then you had Okorafor with the change of Andrews to Leverett because of Andrews' situation. So this is now 3 practices in a row that we've seen Wallace on the left side, Okorafor on the right side. Last time we spoke on Friday before the practice, it looked like Okorafor was going to be your left tackle. He had played a ton at left tackle through minicamp and then at the start of training camp. Patriots said that they loved what they saw from Okorafor on the left side. There was some positivity about Chooks playing left tackle. Now we see him on the right side, which is where he played with the Steelers the last few years. Wallace has moved to the left side. Here's the thing, and this might shock you. The starting offensive line did not look bad today. The offensive line did not look bad today. The starting offensive line. The one-on-one, even some of the backup offensive line, the one-on-one. So the first bit of contact that we saw at practice today was pass rush drills. One-on-one. Pass rush versus offensive lineman. And so you're looking at these one-on-one drills, right? And the offensive line did a really good job during the one-on-ones. As a matter of fact, my buddy Greg Bedard had the numbers. I didn't have the numbers. I would have told you that they just did a really good job for the most part. But the offensive line, they were 21, 7, and 9. What that means is that they won 21 of the reps. They lost 7 of the reps. They tied on 9 of the reps. So when it was pass rush, what's that a total of? 37? So out of the 37 total one-on-one pass rush versus offensive line drills run today, out of those 37 pass rushes, the offensive line won 21 times, and they tied 9 times. So 30 out of the 37, offensive line did not lose the matchup one-on-one. Now, of course, Judon wasn't out there, which helps. Barmore wasn't out there, which helps. And Uche, he ran hot and cold. But the offensive line, they won the positional drills. And then when you look at who did well, Caden Wallace did well today. He did well on the one-on-ones and the drills, and he also did pretty well. He had one false start. He and Okorafor, both tackles, false start on the same snap. But outside of that, outside of the false start, Wallace actually played pretty well. He looked pretty good against contact today at left tackle. So, again, if you want some silver linings, Caden Wallace, he looked good on the one-on-ones for the most part. And then, in the 11-on-11s, he held his own. Wallace looked pretty good at left tackle today. Another guy who looked pretty good was Layden Robinson, the 4th-round pick, the guard. He did a really good job in the one-on-one drills, and then he did a pretty damn good job when it came to the 11-on-11s, especially in the run game. So your 2 rookie offensive linemen both looked pretty good today. Wallace and Robinson both looked pretty good. There was one guy who looked like an absolute freaking beast. Mike Onwenu. Onwenu was a beast. One-on-one drills, he's tossing dudes around. I mean, he was dominant. One-on-one pass rush drill. Dominant. And then when they got out there on the practice field, he was pretty awesome on the practice field as well. He opened up a couple of huge holes for the run game, and he looked really good today. So Onwenu looked like a guy who earned the contract extension that he got. Looked like he earned that big free agent deal. He was borderline excellent today from what I saw. So Wallace was pretty damn good. Robinson was pretty damn good. Onwenu was a beast. Okorafor was fine. Didn't look like Okorafor lost too much. So the offensive line, pretty good overall. And I would say this too, the run game popped. The pass game wasn't great today, obviously from May and Milton and Zappi. Brissett was good, but the run game was good. There was some legitimate push up front. The offensive line did a good job of opening holes. Ramondre Stevenson had a couple of runs that he popped. Terrell Jennings, undrafted free agent running back, he popped a big run. You also had Kevin Harris. Kevin Harris popped a big run. So there were 4 or 5 significant run plays at practice today that made you feel pretty good. If you're watching this offense, you say, okay, well, if they can get that kind of push up front, if they can establish that kind of run game, all right. You're seeing, you saw a small step towards progress today. I think a lot of people, you're going to hear a lot of it. A lot of people are going to take Drake May's struggles from the practice today, right? That's going to be the biggest thing talked about. But when you look at some other things, the offensive line, again, wasn't a mess. The top unit, without David Andrews, it wasn't a mess. Your 2 rookie offensive linemen played well and did really well in the drills. Onwenu looked borderline excellent. Brissett had a good day. Baker and Thornton made big plays. So there were positives in today's practice for this offense. It was not a complete, oh my God, what the hell are we watching? It might get back to that tomorrow. But as of today, there was some signs of life from the offensive line, from Brissett, and from this offense. We'll see how the defense adjusts. They're going to watch film. They'll probably come out tomorrow pissed. And again, we also have to add the context here because we give you the context. No Barmore, no Judon, no Uche, no Jabril Peppers. Obviously, that's a big deal. 4 of your best defensive players were not out there. So that is part of the conversation. All right, just a couple of more quick notes before I bid you adieu on this Monday. Gerard Mayo met with the media, said a couple of interesting things to me. They asked him about the offensive line and being set with a 5. By the way, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe if you like what we do here. If you love what we do, you best like, comment, subscribe, rate, and review Spotify and Apple Pods. Mayo said that, hopefully by preseason game number 3, they will have their offensive line set. Now, that could be a little bit of gamesmanship because, again, it looks like they're starting to settle on an offensive line. It could change, but right now it looks like Wallace has taken steps. And I heard some positive things about Wallace, by the way, from some people today when I was out there at practice. Wallace is starting to win some people over. So right now, looks like Wallace at left tackle, So at left guard, David Andrews, Owenu, and then Okorafor. We'll see if they stick with those tackles. It really looks like there's not much doubt that you have So, Andrews, and Owenu as your interior offensive line. The question is, do they continue to flip? Will we see another flip at tackle, or do they settle with Wallace at left and Okorafor at right? Does that change as they go through preseason? Does it change as you have more padded practices and the physicality amps up? Does it change by the time you get to the joint practice on August 13th? But right now, it seems like they've kind of settled on that 5. But Mayo told everybody today, it's not a guarantee. We want to have that thing locked in by preseason game 3. I would hope that it's locked in well before that. The other thing that Mayo said was that this is a team that's going to lean on its defense. We knew that. But he also mentioned again that they're going to lean on the run game. They want to control the clock. So this is going to be a heavy Ramondre Stevenson, Antonio Gibson, and whoever that third running back is. It's going to be a heavy run offense. AVP has talked about it. Mayo talked about it today. So they're going to want to run the football. Stevenson could be at the heart of this offense this year. And Stevenson looked pretty good today, by the way. So, you've got that run game. That's what Mayo said. One name that popped out at me a few times today, O'Shea Ximenez. O'Shea Ximenez is somebody who is a pretty talented pass rusher. He hasn't, consistently done the job at the NFL level. He was, I think, a second-round pick by the Giants going back a few years ago. He showed up multiple times today. The one-on-one drills, he showed up. He showed up multiple times, the one-on-one drills, and he also had a couple of pressures when they started the competitive periods. So keep an eye on Ximenez because he made some plays today. And he could easily make this roster, I think, as a sub-pass rusher. So keep an eye on O'Shea Ximenez. If he continues the way he played today at practice with the pads on, he's most likely going to find himself a spot on the roster. A lot can change, but today was a good day for him. All right, don't forget, like, comment, subscribe, rate, and review. That'll do it for today's podcast. We're back Wednesday at 4 o'clock right here on YouTube. Until then, this has been the Nick Cattle Show.